Hello viewers, welcome to yet another video class on peasant struggles in modern India. I am Arani Saikia from the Postgraduate Department of History, Nagaon College. We are going to discuss Moplah uprisings. It is also known as Malabar Rebellion. Let's look at the historical background of the Moplahs or Mappilahs. Moplahs were Muslim peasants settled in the Malabar region of Kerala. The socio-economic background of the Moplahs was heterogeneous. Muslims had arrived in Kerala in the 7th century as traders via the Arabian Sea. The native rulers permitted them to carry on trade and settle down there. Many of the migrated Muslims married local women, and their descendants came to be called Moplahs, which means son-in-law in Malayalam. Certain rich Moplahs earned their livelihood as traders and merchants. Rest of them worked as small agriculturists who were the tenants of the big landlords. These landlords were the high caste Hindus. The Moplahs acquired the status of warriors by adopting the traditional ways of Nayars. So look at the map. The Moplah region is in the extreme western coast of Kerala. This is the Malabar region. Now look at the reasons of dissatisfaction of the Moplahs. Before Tipu Sultan's attack on Malabar, in the traditional land system in Malabar, the upper caste Hindu landlords were called Janmis. They let out the land to others for farming. There were mainly three hierarchical levels of ownership, including the cultivator, and each of them took a share of the produce. Under this system, the Moplahs were mostly cultivators of the land. In order to avoid persecution and forced conversions, many Hindu landlords fled from Malabar to the neighboring areas. During this time, the Moplah tenants were accorded ownership rights to the lands. But after the death of Tipu Sultan in 1799, in the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, Malabar came under British authority as part of the Madras Presidency. The British set out to restore ownership rights to the Janmis who had earlier fled from the region. Janmis were now given absolute ownership rights of the land, which was not the case previously. The Moplah peasants were now imposed high rents and they faced insecurity of occupancy rights. For a long time, the relationship between the Moplahs and the Janmis was quite unfriendly. They had economic and religious conflicts. The Janmis had high demands from the Moplah tenants. Moreover, the Moplah tenants were discriminated against the Hindu tenants. There was a lot of insecurity in relation to land tenure. The Moplahs were often expelled from their land without any prior notice. The Janmis fixed a renewal fee at an exorbitant rate, which was the immediate cause for Moplah agitation. Another motivating factor of the Moplah agitation was the Khilafat movement. This movement took roots in Malabar also. The Khilafat movement had started in 1919 in India in support of the restoration of the Caliphate in Turkey. The Indian National Congress was aligned with it. The Khilafat meetings in Malabar incited communal feelings among the Moplahs, and thus it became a movement directed against the British as well as the Hindu landlords of Malabar. So look at this photograph. Here we see that the Moplahs joined by the or encouraged by the Indian National Congress, they stood against the imperial force. The Moplahs actively took part in the Khilafat movement, from which they got support for their peasant agitation. The British government was weakened as a result of the First World War. and it was not in a position to take military action at this moment. Taking advantage of this situation, the Moplahs increased their rates. Most of the grievances of the Moplah peasants were related to security of tenure, high rents, renewal fees, and other unfair exactions of the Janmis. There were a series of riots by the Moplahs starting from 1836. The Hindu landlords began to suppress the Moplah rights from 1835. But between 1836 and 1896, the Moplahs killed many government officers as well as Hindu landlords. The final break to the Moplah rebellion came when a Khilafat leader and a highly reputed priest, Ali Muzalir, was arrested. The police opened fire on the unarmed crowd and many were killed. This was resulting a clash in which the government offices were destroyed, the records were burned, and the treasury was looted. The rebellion in August 91 spread to all the strongholds of the Moplahs. Mostly the targets of the Moplah attacks were the unpopular Janmis, police stations, treasuries, offices, and the British planters. This armed revolt was led by Ali Muzalir and V.K. Haji. So, what was the nature of Moplah uprising? The Moplah spared those Hindu landlords who maintained lenient relations with them. The Moplah rebels traveled several miles through the territory and attacked only the Hindu landlords. This gave a communal flavor to the peasant uprising. Due to communalization of peasant movement, the Moplahs lost their sympathy among the Malabar people. The Moplahs took to violence as a method of agitation, which was another reason for the failure of the movement. The movement also did not motivate the neighborhood peasantry for the uses of arms against the peasantry. The only tragedy in this struggle was that the landlords were Hindus, which resulted in such communal riots. Let's look at the result of the Moplah uprising. The rebellion of the Moplahs was crushed by the British. The government had raised a special battalion, the Malabar Special Force, to crush the riot. In November 1921, 67 Moplah prisoners were killed when they were being transported in a closed freight wagon from Tirur to the central prison in Podanur. They died of suffocation. As shown in this picture, this event is called the wagon tragedy. By December 1921, all resistance of the Moplahs was stopped. Let's look at the consequence of the Moplah uprisings. The rebellion of the Moplahs is often considered one of the first cases of the nationalist uprisings in southern India. The British blamed this rebellion on the Khilafat movement. It is widely debated as a few experts mention the Moplah revolt to have a communal touch. Some say that it has to be considered as the struggle against British supremacy, while some mention that it culminated in an anti Hindu movement. Thank you, viewers.